Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where I get to interview a lot of my clients, best-selling authors who have great stories, a great message, and a great business. And this guy that I met in Vegas has an amazing business that I'm all in on, right? Self-storage is one of his avenues. I met him in Vegas at a self-storage conference. I was speaking there, and it was at Joe Evangelisti's get-together. And once the conversation was over during the event, I met with Jay. He says he has a self-storage business also, and he's looking to write a book. Once I got to know him, I realized that he is a serious player, has an amazing story. His book, Stop Chasing Paychecks, a message that I am all in on, right? Quit the corporate job, start a business, take your business, invest in assets, and then have your assets pay for your lifestyle. So Jay, thanks so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. You know, it was great to meet you, and you brought a dream to life that I've been dreaming for, 20 years. I want to write a book. And when I saw you on stage, I went, I found him.
This is the guy, the book guy. All right.
He knows how to make it happen.
Well, let's start off with, before we get into your backstory, self-storage. All right. I invested in a deal with Joe Evangelisti in Ohio. It pays me monthly. And I just made a post about it yesterday, how I had that money buy a dirt bike, right? Like I gave him money and then it helped pay for the lifestyle. So that is the rich dad, poor dad philosophy, right? Invest in assets and then have your assets pay for your technically liabilities. So why did you fall in love with, I guess you could say, real estate, but more so specifically self-storage?
It is. And I've been in real estate for, a quarter of a century, which is a long time. I've done just about everything there is in real estate, and it's the, bar none, the best business model in real estate that I have ever found, because it's so automated. And even I think it's even better than multifamily, because it's just a metal box.
Right. No toilets.
Yeah, it's just a metal box, and it doesn't follow under all the RESPA laws. The people don't pay. You give them 15 days, you auction their crap, you sweep the box, and then you put it up for rent. It's really that simple. And we run ours off our cell phones, so we don't even have nobody even has to be there. Everything's digital now. They rent from the cell phone, they pay from the cell phone. It's all automated. There's only two things that you ever get a phone call from those things, from the storage facilities, is A, the gate isn't opening, or B, I can't get my lock off my unit for some reason. And or the roll up doors not rolling up right. That's the calls. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's the only phone calls we ever get. I can't get in the gate, and it's usually something to do with the software system, which you can do automated from computer to office, or my door's not rolling up good. So you just go out there, type some screws, and shoot some WD-40 on it, and you're rolling.
Which means you have one property manager for what? You can talk about 400 units in there, right? You can have as many units as possible.
You don't even need one property manager. You can have, they call them boots on the ground guys. They just kind of go around, and a lot of people just use their lawnmower guy to check everything, and put the locks on and stuff. The guys mows their lawn once a week. Just, hey, go around and see if anything's vacant. If it is, let me know which unit is, and go ahead and put this lock on it. They're called Da Vinci locks. It's got a code. As soon as they put the lock on it, it goes into a system, and the system automatically does everything for you.
And you brought up the regulation aspect. The fact that there is so much red tape when it comes to multifamily or single family households that just does not apply to a place that these individuals do not live in. Now, I've heard some horror stories that people are trying to live in them, right? There are some that try to sneak into them and live there. But that is gold. My DNA, I thought I wanted to be a multifamily investor when I first started. At 23 years old, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I got into it. I was the property manager. Not too long after, I realized I don't want to ever do this ever again. Fixing toilets, fixing roofs, getting calls that they see bees outside. Like, what am I going to do about bees outside? Right. So that's whenever my DNA shifted and said, you know what, whatever I'm going to invest in next, it's got to be passive. It's got to be hands-free, and it's got to be in my favor. When it comes to tenants not paying, they're gone right away. Right. That is justice. So tell us a little bit about the regulations, how it differs.
Well, let's go back to COVID. You know, you have a lot of friends in the apartment world. I have a lot of friends in the apartment world because that's what I was messing around in the apartment syndication when I stumbled across the self-storage. During COVID, what did the regulations do to the owners? Rent control. Basically told the people living in the rent that they didn't have to pay the rent.
You don't have to collect. What
Yes,
a freaking joke.
Exactly. And you as the owner, that bank was still knocking on the door for your mortgage payment.
Damn right. They didn't shut that down, right?
Yeah, it put a lot of people, business owners, in some financial crunches. You know, I don't know of any that lost their apartments because of it, but it sure hurt them financially.
Scared the shit out of them. Yep.
Yeah. So that right there alone says enough that when it comes to the consumer, you know, even though our tenants are consumer, it's not residential property. So it doesn't follow under the RESPA laws or the control that the government has. It's just a metal box.
It's beautiful. So, yep. Yeah. To attest to what you just said, I know people who are starting to be very proactive. If the government's saying tenants don't have to pay, don't worry about it, it's okay. But they're still telling the banks to say, hey, collect on this debt. Mm-hmm. It is not in. Yeah, the big players like BlackRock and all that, they can withstand these crazy
yes,
for years, right?
Yes.
But the middle guys, the people who are just doing this, mom and pop locations, they could go under right away, which shows you that you need to be more in control of your money and then be away from their grasp, right? And that's sort of what self-storage is. Too small, and you said it's industrial rather than residential or commercial.
Yes,
residential.
Yeah. Yes, it falls under the commercial. I mean, it doesn't fall under the residential laws at all. So that was the big thing. I'm going when the light bulb went off, I went, oh, this is crazy. I'll never own an apartment complex. I'll never own anything that I have someone living in ever. You know, so and I don't own a rent house or apartment to this day. I used to own 25 rent houses and years ago. And it's funny how I stumbled into the self-storage world, you know, when I was getting frustrated with the syndication because it was just inundated with people doing syndication apartments and stuff. And yeah, it looks good, but God, you have to give so much away when you syndicate an apartment complex as an owner, a GP, you know. And I was standing in front of my self-storage. I was one of those people that had one and had one for 5 years with just crap in it because I didn't want that crap in my shop at the house.
Yep.
But I was standing there, I'm going, I'm paying $75 a month for this box. Then I got to looking around me. I'm going, there's locks on every door. Wait a minute. Then I started running numbers and figuring things out. And then it wasn't too long that exact self-storage facility came up for sale. I said, all right, I'm going to get into this. So I evaluated like we do apartments complexes and stuff. And the price that they had on it, and my evaluation was coming up $1 million apart. And I said, I called the realtor, you know, the listing broker, and I said, how are you getting to this number that you've got it listed at? And he goes, well, Jay, what do you think it's worth? Well, I'm almost embarrassed to say because we was $1 million apart on the list of what I thought it was worth and what he had it listed at. So I said, well, I'm not educated enough on this, so I'm just going to back off this a minute. And that stinking thing sold 4 minutes later for $100,000 more than I was going to offer.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, it gets better, Mike. I call that the $1 million mistake that I made. Then that company immediately, because we were so under market, raised the rents and added $2 million in value to the property, sold it a year later. So they made almost $2 million on it to another company. That company had it for a year and raised rates again. So altogether, that thing's went up about $3 million in value in the last 4 years. So that was one of the biggest financial mistakes I've ever made because I didn't just dig into it deeper because I could have bought the thing for about 1.2.
Oh,
close to 5 now.
So your valuation was pretty damn spot on.
It was on. It was spot on. I was so scared to make the offer because I'm going, how can I be $1 million off? Something's wrong. I'm not doing something right. You know, I was right. I just didn't make the offer.
Wow, that's the power of being around people who have done it, right? If you would have talked to
Exactly.
somebody in that world, they would have said, "Hey, do this right now,
Yeah,
now, pull the
and I
trigger."
knew nobody in the business. I had nobody to reach out to and say, "Hey, what am I doing wrong here? What do you think about this?" If I would have known the people I know now, they would have said, "Buy it or I will." Just like I told my last partner that when she called me when I was in Vegas, she goes, "I think I got a deal. I don't know." And I said, "Give me the numbers." And she gave me the numbers. I said, "Buy it, write a contract right now." "Well, I don't know how." I said, "I'll send you the LOI, submit it, do it right now. And then we'll worry about figuring it out later." Because now I know that's exactly what would have happened to me on that one if I'd been in the right room with the right people.
That $1 million mistake, or you can call it a $3 million mistake, has probably yielded a lot more in the future or even currently, because now
It
you know
will.
what to look for, and you
Yep.
now will pull the trigger on things you see. Your trust your gut, if you will, right?
Yeah, and that was before it was getting hot. This was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So it's just like the multifamily world. Self storage got really hot there during COVID, and it's still hot. I mean, hell, they're still trading at a 5 cap. I'm not understanding how they're making it work. It's a lot of cash on the market right now.
Yeah, if you can talk a little bit about the growing demand. We're in a renter's market. I think we will always be in a renter's market for the foreseeable future. I do not see individuals going back into home ownership as much, and I think people are downsizing. Therefore, they need storage facilities. I, like you, rented storage facilities, and I was like, you know what? If I'm interested in them, I guarantee there are a lot more people who are interested in them. And then I started doing my research and realized this is a growing demand. It is I believe it's the only real estate sector that has grown consistently for the past, 15, 20 years. So
Yep.
can you kind of highlight the growing demand that you've witnessed?
Well, it's just like you said, Mike. I think home ownership is going to slow and come to a crazy pulse because I do have a home building division, and we are very short on the housing, and we're going to continue to have a shortage of housing. The problem is you can't build affordable homes no more. Coming from a builder standpoint, it costs so much to build a home right now because your dirt cost is so high, the material so high, the labor so high. A 2,000 square foot house 8, 9 years ago was, it was $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
That same house is in Oklahoma is 450. Well, and with the interest rates at 8%, it just kills the normal working class person to be able to make that kind of a mortgage payment. Now, when mortgages come down, things will change a little bit. And I think they will eventually here in a year or two, once we get through this regime and this problem that we're facing right now in the economy and everything else. But until then, renters are going to be there, and renters like their stuff. They will keep their stuff. So I think there's going to be a continued demand for self storage for at least another 5 years.
Yep.
Strong demand, and that's why I build them, because they're so hard to buy. I can build them for half of what it would cost to buy one. So we're actively in the developing phase of several, and there are projections that they're leasing up faster than what the projections are, because there's the growth is still happening in all the cities. It's still growing crazy, but the availability of space for rent isn't out there to the tenants.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still going to be a very lucrative business for many, many years to come.
Yeah, I like you said, there's a lot of people getting into the multifamily and the single family investing. It seemed like there was a lot more of a delay to get into the self storage and even mobile home parks, right? For years, mobile home parks were frowned upon as, an eyesore. And then individuals like the people we hang out with realized that it was such a cash cow that it's a growing demand also. But same with
Right.
self storage, they don't look like they used to, right? They look beautiful. And then that's why townships, boroughs, and all that are welcoming them into their community, simply because of the demand, but they're actually very gorgeous to look at. They're not as much of an eyesore as they used to be back in the day. So
Yeah, the old ones with the old galvanized tin and looks like shacks. They're nice properties now. They're very, very architecturally, aesthetically pleasing to people. And a lot of cities have kind of taken away where we want to allow the corrugated metal and stuff like this. They're making you put nicer facades on the front of it and making it look more like a commercial building. So, I mean, it's changed a lot.
The book is called Stop Chasing Paychecks, Escape the Rat Race and Get in the Game of Building Legacy Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate Investing. Pick it up on Amazon. It is definitely a bestseller. I don't know where it's at in the ranks right now, but it was an Amazon bestseller, I think, in week 1 when it came out. So pick it up. This book, it starts off with you being a police officer, right? I mean, you can go back even a little further from that, but how did you go from, I guess, chasing paychecks to where you're at now? Was there a moment in time that you want to elaborate on this podcast that was the defining moment that said no more?
There was. It started with my first flip house that I bought. I as a police officer, I always want to be a police officer. You know, I go back a little further. I had a vision board before I even knew what a vision board was. I had one when I was 14 years old. I would put these things, you know, the vet, the motorcycle, the stuff like that on my wall at the house, and I'm saying, I'm going to own them one day. I'm going to own them one day. Well, I loved law enforcement, wanted to be in law enforcement, grew up watching Miami Vice. It always looked cool to do that, you know.
Get the Ferrari, yeah.
I ended up being, you know, a police officer, but law enforcement doesn't make much money. The job was fun, and this is back before all the malarkey now that's going on, but the job was fun. But I've, you know, being the entrepreneur, having the type A mentality, I've always been a driver, you know, just a hustler. And I wanted to make a name for myself and live a lifestyle that just could not be lived on a law enforcement salary. So I got into flipping houses. Didn't know crap about real estate, but everybody I talked to that was wealthy was in real estate. And I said, okay, well, let's start where it's simple. Let's start flipping. And got hooked up with a realtor, bought a house, flipped a couple of houses, and you know, and I started doing pretty good on them. And then I'd buy some in rentals, and then the subprime area, you know, subprime era happened. Got me just like it got everybody else. And then I started building homes. And then when I started building homes, things changed. But to kind of go back, the defining moment when I was a police officer is I'd been on the force 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. And I would do my 10 and I'd turn it in because I had my home remodeling business, which I did all the work. And at the same time, I was still a farm boy and I was running 100 head of mama cows. So I had like 3 full-time jobs hustling on all, you know, every day.
When you say do your 10, that means 10 hours straight, right? And then be done.
I do my 10 hours.
Yep.
Then I would turn it in. And here's how my day kind of went. I would get up around 8 o'clock in the morning because my shift was 4:30 in the afternoon to 2:30 in the morning. So I'd be home by 3 a.m., jump in bed and sleep till about 7:30. And then I'd get out of bed and I'd roll at 8 o'clock and head to the check on the cows, make sure everything's taken care of. From there, I'd go to the job site and I'd work on the job site, remodeling houses, laying the tile. I did all the work myself. That's how I taught myself. There's only 2 things that I've never done and won't do, and that's lay shingles and pour concrete. Everything else in the house I've done: the electrical, the plumbing, everything. I've done it all.
Concrete's an art that takes years, right? There's something to that.
Well, I don't get on roofs, even though I owned a roofing company for several years. I don't like to get on roofs because I'm not scared of heights. I'm scared of falling, so I don't get on them. But in the concrete, you kind of got to know what you're doing when you're pouring concrete. So, but anyway, I was flipping houses, and I was starting to have a little problem at the department because they had no control over me because I didn't need the cop's salary. And so there was I starting to have some problems with the brass. And I was being me. I was very outspoken about crap that I didn't agree with at the department. And I became a disgruntled employee for a while. You know, I'd still do my job, but I didn't let them push me around. And it's just, they just didn't like that. And I finally, you know, I flipped a house in the hood and 90 days and made 30 grand on it. And I was sitting there looking at this paycheck when I walked away from closing, and then I'd gotten my last paycheck of the year, because there's 20 pay periods in 20, yeah, I think there's 20 pay periods, whatever. It was the final paycheck for the year cycle as a law enforcement officer, and I saw my gross pay, because I didn't work no overtime last year, which was another problem, because they couldn't force me to work overtime. They used to get mad in hell at me because I'd say, they said, Elena, we need you to work a couple hours over. And they said, no, you're working. No, I'm not. Fire me. I'm not. I got other responsibilities, guys. This is just my job.
Great conviction.
I'm not. Call one of those guys that need the work. I don't need the work. I don't need the paycheck. So anyway, I sat there, I was holding that gross check for the year and this check here. And that gross check for the year was $29,825. I still remember it to this day. And I was holding a check, $30,192. I did in 90 days. And I said, it's time. It's time for me to turn it in. I'm at a job I don't like. I don't need the job. And I'm holding it from a young man that needs the job and wants to do it. So I went in the next day and handed him my resignation. And the brass said, you'll be back in 6 months. That was 22 years ago.
God, I love those stories. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's just proof. The moment you make a decision up here, the universe is going to test you, right? And it's going to test you with, hey, what is the community around you going to say? And they're going to try to buy your time back or steal it from you. You have to have the fortitude to fight back, which is exactly what you did.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, don't get me wrong. It was I had multiple difficult times getting to where I am today from the day that I left the police department. But, you know, I don't call it failure. I call it education, because I did a lot of stuff. I am self-taught to get where I was. Up until about 5 years ago when I met Joe, I really didn't hang around with people that was mentors. I never had a mentor, I guess I should say. I never had mentors. I did it and figured it out, and I failed at it, or I was successful at it. So it took me until I was 48 to realize I needed to be in rooms with people better than me that I could learn from. You know, being in a small town, when you're at the top, you know, everybody wants to be around you, but they're not making you get better because they're not better than you. You know, it's like they say, you need to be the dumbest guy in the room, not the smartest, if you want to better yourself. And
so you woke up at 48. 48, that's probably an eye-opening experience where you're like, all right, there's more out there. It's time to go now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, what I've done in the last 6 years compared to what I did the 20 before, 15 or 16, 18 before it is, if I would have had the knowledge and the experience and the connections that I do now, back when I was 25, there's no doubt in my mind that I would, if I wanted to, completely retire today. Now, I am one of those guys that will never retire.
Same.
I work, you know, that's entrepreneurs.
Yep. We love it.
Entrepreneurs don't retire, because I have friends right now. Jay, when are you going to retire?
We would die, right?
What do you do when you retire, man? Okay.
Boring.
As I see retire, they go play golf and they're bored as hell, so they can find something to do. You know, I will never retire. I enjoy what I do. Now I'll slow down. I'll cut off some things and not do everything that I'm doing now, and just focus on the bigger checks. That's what I'll be doing then. You know,
right.
But I love development. I love commercial development. I love the industrial side of stuff, self-storage industrial. So I will do that forever until I just die. Because I grew up on a farm. I learned it, and it's in my book, but I learned to work hard and use these. I was never taught to use this. I had to learn that. I had to learn that. And the learning to work hard growing up is in my blood, and I don't know how to turn it off. It's just every day I get up and I'm going, get up like purpose. I mean, I have purpose, and you got to have purpose, but I get up like I'm broke every day and go grinding. And it's hard for me to even shut down. I have to leave and go out of the country to Mexico or somewhere just to relax, because if I'm at home, I'm going to work. I don't know anything else. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't watch sports. I have no hobbies. I don't golf. I don't do anything. So I work, and
I
it's hard
remember
to shut that down.
I remember when we were doing the book interview, I think you had to leave the office because there was so much happening that your mind would start to focus on other business while we were doing the book interview. It's like if it's around you, you're gonna invest in it, right? So like getting in your truck or going for a drive, you just have to escape it sometimes.
Yes.
And that is hard for an entrepreneur to shut it off, right? To go to
Yes.
sleep at night, to wake up and have this peaceful morning. We want to just go right at it. And it's an art to kind of balance that.
It's yeah, and you have to force yourself to do it because we are such driven individuals that you've got to kind of. And I've been really bad my entire life about chasing squirrels. I'm a squirrel chasing son of a gun. So here in the last few years, I've going squirrel, no, focus, squirrel, nope. Put them blinders on, buddy. We got a mission, but them squirrels, they still run in front of me a lot.
Well, that's another part of the universe testing you. Hey, do you really
Yeah.
want what you want? Well, I'm gonna tempt you with this over here. It's gonna look amazing. This shiny
Yeah.
object syndrome. I'm gonna let it
Oh,
get
yeah.
back into your life and see if you battle with it, just like you did. Yeah,
You're right.
amazing. So I was walking around. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos. The Bookman interviews the public about their favorite books. It's a
Yes.
fun little series that we're debuting here. And I met this guy. He was 39 years old. I walked up to him. He had two little kids. And I just asked him, what's a book that changed your life? And he said, oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad changed my life. And I was like, how old were you when you read that book? I was 39 years old. It changed my life. It helped me start a business. And we're going to have generational wealth because of it. And I said, well, how old are you right now? He's like 39. He just read it. He
I
quit
love
his
it.
job and he's started a medical marijuana company. Okay. He has his two little kids there. He's like, I wish I would have read this book 20 years ago. And you could see the hurt in his eyes. And it's just like, I finally see what I need to do. Now I have direction. So you bring up at 48, you change your life. I know that you started talking to Joe Evangelisti and he put you on that path. I think you might have read Multiplicity, but is there a book or a moment in time where you met somebody and it said, oh, I get it now. This is the path and I will never be the same ever again?
Well, the reason I was at a point in my life, I was doing very good. I was juggling multiple businesses, but there was so much chaos in my life that I was the grumpy old man at the office. I was difficult to live with. I was difficult to be around my wife at home. It just because there was so much chaos in my life, and I knew that's when I started looking for a business coach. I'm going, I got to do something. I've got to do something, or I'm just going to blow up like an atomic bomb one day. So I went to hunting for the coach, and I found Joe, and he put me on a path. And
how'd you find Joe, real quick? I know you have it in the book, but
I posted it on Facebook that can anybody recommend a good business coach? Because I knew it was a business coach, not a life coach, I needed. And the thing is, and it's in my book, but I needed someone that understood me, talked like me, and communicated with me like me. And that's what I was worried about, is finding that person. And I needed somebody that had been through the trenches like me. So it's funny but when some headhunter, I think he was a headhunter for Joe, had contacted me, and he's a good guy. And I'm a hard sell. You will not close me on the first phone call. It just doesn't happen. Car dealerships, they ain't closing me. Ain't nobody closing me first. It just ain't gonna happen.
You're not selling me. I'm a buyer. That's how I look at it too.
Yeah. So he called me. He goes, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, what's your problem?" So I told him. He goes, "I think I've got your guy." I said, "Yeah, well, tell me about it." He told me about it, and then I did a little research. And then he calls me back a week later. He goes, "So what do you think?" I said, "And I don't know. I'm kind of hunting." He goes, "Why don't I just book a call with you and see if you guys are a fit?" And I said, "That won't hurt nothing." He did that, and it's just like the coach, when the coach calls a prospective client, they're going to vet them and make sure that they're a fit and they're coachable. Well, in the same time, I was vetting him, going, I need to make sure he is what he is and not bullshit, young guy that thinks he's just 2 houses and now thinks he can be a coach and all. There's gurus everywhere now. And it's just I've been down that path. I've listened to all that crap, and I just said, I need the real deal. And once we got through talking, I said, I think he's it. And I got this one thing in the book, and he says, I think we can fix it, Jay. He goes, but one thing. I said, what's that? He goes, before we can fix your problem, we got to fix you. My arrogance and my type A mentality. I went right off. The hell does he mean he's got to fix me? Me.
That's that ego, right? Ego will get in the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And I mean, he was 100% true. I mean, he had to fix this up here before we could go down the path we went. And it was, matter of fact, Wednesday was, I still talk to him once a month. I talk to him more than once a month, but we still have coaching lessons once a month. And I will continue with him because I consider him to be one of my closest friends now.
He taught me a couple things, but number one, I remember him on the first call for a book interview. He said something. He said that stuck with me, and it still stays with me for everybody I meet. And if I'm going to do business with them, he said, if I'm doing business with you, it's because I see you in my life 10 years from now. And that really struck me. The light bulb went on. Oh, it's not all about the one night stands and the, just meet, get the sale done and then move on. It's more the Japanese approach where it's like, okay, let me team up with these people, because if I see them in my life 10 years from now, every dollar that's spent, every minute I'm spending with them, it's an investment into something so much greater. So that was huge. Another thing he taught me was all about the 5 freedoms, right? If you have money freedom, but you don't have time freedom, you're still poor. Like, I thought about that and I'm like, oh man, I need to get all 5 freedoms. So I started focusing on that. And the other part of it is, and I guarantee he taught you this on one of the coaching calls, but what you like, what you love, what you don't like, and what you hate. And
the quadrant. Yes.
The quadrants.
Yes.
Game changer. What did you
huge game changer. Yes. Huge.
The moment I started, guys, just to kind of break this down for you, if you do a quadrant, all right, you just draw it, and then you put what you love and what you like in your business, and then below that, what you don't like and what you hate. Start listing out all the activities, and anything in that second quadrant, the bottom quadrant, immediately take everything that you like or you dislike and find somebody today to start taking care of that.
I think that bottom right quadrant's not don't like, it's F this.
Yeah.
That's like F this. That's maybe you start with. You start putting people there. The who. You put
love, like, dislike, F this. Yeah, maybe you get the F this list off your plate right
that's
now.
That's number one. Yeah, get it off.
Yeah, so that's a good point. As soon as I did that, I left I think we were in Vail, Colorado, right? We were there for an event, and I hired somebody for something that was just a pain in the ass. And it just freed up my life a little bit more. And I felt it immediately. So the power of a book, his book, Multiplicity, but the power of a mentor just opens your eyes to things you've never even thought about. So great story there. Meeting Joe, trusting him. And then you make moves faster, right? Because now you have this guy in your corner.
Joe laughed at me because I shared that book with a few young men that I help mentor. And I call it the Book of Joe. He laughed, and I said, he goes, the Book of Joe. I said, yeah, the Book of Joe.
He messaged me out of the blue, I think 2-3 months ago. And he said, man, that Multiplicity book was the greatest thing I ever wrote. Like, I was like, why? Because he hears from the rumble through his network that is changing their lives. And I just was in awe, because when you scale yourself, like by putting yourself in a book for others to read, you have no idea who you're impacting until you get a phone call or a text message or a review. So you put this book out, I don't know, I guess it's been a couple months now, 2 months. How has it changed your life?
We've probably been 4 or 5 months. You know what, Mike, I've had 3 phone calls. 2 of them were officers that said, this is what I needed. This hit home. You being ex-law enforcement, this hit home with me. And they said, it's made me think a lot. And I said, I'm so glad that because as well as I do, a book's only good when you're at a point in your life that you need what that book's telling you.
Yep.
And you can read a book that it's a good book, but you're not at a position in your life that the message in the book is getting through to you. So, every book out there's got a message, but is it a point in your life that message is going to get to you and resonate of what you need or help you? And that's why, it's got my whole life story on it. And if it helps someone better, that's all I wanted to do. That's all it meant to me. It wasn't about trying to make money on the sales of the book. It's about helping someone. And that's because I went through hell my last 20 some odd years, and I needed to share it. And if somebody is experienced or going through what I went through, hopefully what I explained in the book helps them get through it.
When the student is ready, the master will appear, right? And that is how it works with a book. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It changed my life. It got me into the world of entrepreneurship. And then I read it years later, not the whole thing, but most of it. And it hit differently. And I was like, oh, now that I've seen so much, these words have more meaning over here. And it's wild how that can be applied to pretty much every big book, like Outwitting the Devil or Think and Grow Rich. You can always find these nuggets, but it's based off of the application of knowledge. They say knowledge is power, but the application is really what's powerful. So when you put these ideas at work, you learn more, and then you start to see different things on the page that jump out, and then you're more receptive of them, so you can apply them probably more efficiently. So this book, though, you said it's changed a lot of people's lives in regarding maybe the law enforcement world, right? There's a different mentality of those who are going after the 9 to 5 as compared to entrepreneurship. And real quick, can you kind of identify that rat race when you talk about in this book? It's like a culture shock. It's like the allegory of the cave from Plato, where eventually you escape the cave, you see the sun, you try to go back down, you try to wake people up, but they're not receptive. They're not ready. So you can't really get through to them. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, law enforcement it's not the public. With all the crap in the public right now, those guys, to be in law enforcement right now takes a very strong person to do their job. To get up every day, go out there and try to do the right thing and help the public with all the bullshit that's getting on social media and all the crap out there. It's got to be frustrating. It's got to be frustrating. And it doesn't pay enough to deal with that kind of crap every day, but they still do it. And I commend them on it. My son-in-law is a state trooper, and, he's in his first year, and I told him, I said, get ready, because there's going to be difficult times. And the thing about the book, it opens their mind to, I hope it opens the mind of the law enforcement officer that there's more out there. If you love your job, that's great. But so many of them get caught up in just law enforcement. Like when they're off duty, then they go work a security job, or they go do this as a security job, or everything's law enforcement related when you're in law enforcement, because most of them don't know how to do anything else. So they just go doing that. What I hope it does is open their mind to a different world, that, man, if I go flip a house, or I start buying in residual income assets while I'm in law enforcement, maybe the pressure of me not of being able to pay my bills will be lifted, because my assets are building wealth while I'm still doing what I want to do. Instead of working 30 years at the police department, you have this little crappy pension that you're living on a fixed income once you leave for the rest of your life, because this is all you've done. But if you can have an idea of going and doing something a little different while you're doing this and building your wealth, so you can get out in 20, you're not stuck for 30 or whatever to try to, I need that extra 5 years so my pension's bigger or whatever. You can leave at 20 if you focus and you do it right and invest in the right assets while you're doing that. that at 20 you can get out and you can be worth a couple $1,000,000. Whereas a law enforcement, you might leave with a pension of 750,000, million if you're lucky, but you're living on a fixed income because you have to live on that paycheck. It's still a paycheck. No matter how you want to look at it, you're still getting a paycheck, even on a pension. You're still not free. Well, if you have assets that's bringing you income and building your wealth on the backside of that, your paycheck chasing days are over.
Damn right. Earn your money, take that money, buy assets, have your assets pay for your lifestyle. I think about that phrase over and over. So you have something that's pretty special that you're just releasing, or it was just released. I believe it's called Canadian River Fund. Is that correct?
Canadian River Capital. River Capital. Real estate fund. Yes. What we're doing is it's a $10 million fund, diversified real estate fund. It pays 10% a year on your investment across the board, quarterly payments. And what we do is we use it to develop self-storage, industrials, and land. It's a 5-year fund. Your money's tied up for 3 years. You're guaranteed your 10% return on it. And we use the money to invest in developments and self-storage.
Excellent. And it's for accredited investors. Is that correct?
Accredited investors. Yes. And accredited investors, to kind of break it down right now, it's you have to prove that you make $200,000 a year the previous year and projected to make 200,000 plus as an individual in the coming year, own $1 million in assets, not including your personal home. So,
and the reason why people want to do this is what I did with Joe Evangelisti, but it's hands-free. You're not going and doing any of the work. There's already been the due diligence, the location finding, the investment's been made. You put the money in, you reap the rewards, because there are many different aspects of real estate investing. If you help put together the money and there's the sweat equity by a team like yours, they can still reap the rewards passively, right? And that's the whole philosophy. Start building your net worth, building that legacy wealth by investing in funds like yours.
Yes. Yep.
Beautiful. Stop chasing paychecks, guys. Pick it up. The best place is still on Amazon. I don't know if you are going to be offering it through your website, but the website is CanadianRiverCapital.com. Is that correct?
Yes. CanadianRiverCapital.com.
Because if you guys are interested, check out that website, jump on a call with Jay and his team. He'll be able to explain how the fund works, how you can get involved. And if you really want to learn about his life story, which I recommend, pick up his book. It's on Amazon, bestseller. Jay, it's been an honor to talk with you again.
Great to see you,
I'm sure I'll see you at one of these self-storage events in the very near future. Anything else? I think that the best way to get a hold of you is most likely through the website, but Instagram, Facebook, what's the best way?
I'm everywhere. Yep.
So guys, look him up. Jay London. This dude is a no-nonsense individual. So I appreciate your time, Jay. And remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. We'll see you soon.